A huge thank you to Robert Bishop for sponsoring today's video on Patreon. Nadu Winged Wisdom versus Zedruu, Raphael and Satya. 3-lander with no ramp, and we do want to be ramping, getting out Nadu straight away. There's no real means to abuse Nadu either, so risk a mulligan, and it is a risk. Okay, 2-lander, but we've got Sakura Tribe Elder at least, and means of making lands with landfall, or creatures with landfall. Try it. Vexing Devil on turn 1. Yeah, Zedruu decided to have it deal 4 damage to him, so that doesn't stick around. We draw into Foundation Breaker. We want as many creatures around as possible so that we can point triggers at each individual one and therefore trigger Nadu. Go for a Hedge Maze here. Alright, and there's a Mana Crypt on top, which we will certainly keep. A Field of the Dead in play for the Jeskai player. Raphael skims through the turn, but there's a Burnished Heart in play for Zedruu off the back of an Ancient Tomb. Alright, so do we risk getting down our commander here? I think that's fine. So, Mana Crypt and a land into Nadu. No means of us triggering it at the moment, but if our opponents want to point spot removal there, then they can do. Satya passing straight through the turn, and that is a Black Market Connections for Raphael. Burnished Heart getting cracked during the main phase. Alright, the mana's a bit weird now. It'd be nice to hold up the Arcane Denial and go for Sakura Tribe Elder. Or Seaborn Muse hold up Arcane Denial, but can we do this? Return a card from graveyard to hand. We could do that and hold up Arcane Denial, so have to go for that. Alright, and allows us into Polluted Delta, so yeah, I think we're okay to just swing in here. And I'll swing in to the right because that player's getting ahead on mana. The Jeskai Commander hits play. Looking forward to seeing this one because I haven't built it yet, but I do intend to. And that has haste, so swings in at us. We'll get a couple of energy. The Rakdos player is at 40 life, so see how much he takes here. Does everything, so goes down to 34. Card draw, treasure, and a 3-2. Fanatical Offerings sacrifices the token in order to draw 2 and create a map token. And there's one you don't see very often, a Zerzoth Chaos Rider. So that'll be able to start dealing pings of damage all over the place if we're not careful. Master Transmuter is a scary one. Return an artifact you control to hand and put an artifact from your hand onto the battlefield. And that is an Ensnaring Bridge. Creatures with greater power than the number of cards in your hand can't attack. Could counter that, but we're probably best letting it down, to be honest. We're not desperate to attack at the moment, and we can always blow it up with the Foundation Breaker anyway. Maybe best blowing this up with Foundation Breaker, because they're getting it down for a reason. Okay, Tatyova Benthic Druid is nice, so I'm going to risk leaving this in play against my better judgment. Maybe they get down Phyrexian Portal or something, which wouldn't be great. But if they do, we'll go Sakura Tribe Elder, because we do need to continue to accelerate mana. If we feel as though we're going to be able to land Tatyova next turn, then maybe it'll be worth saving the crack on the Sakura Tribe Elder. Probably not. Probably best just getting the land in straight away. Jeska's Will being pointed down the middle, so 6 red mana. Exile the top 3 cards. Oh, did they not exile any cards? They must have misclicked on this because they could have done both. Alright, Phyrexian Metamorph becomes a copy of Nadu maybe. But again, we can blow that up with the Foundation Breaker. So yeah, there we are. We'll even be able to... Oh, the cards are exiled here, so there was an Invasion of Vryn, a land, and it must have been the Phyrexian Metamorph that they've just played. And then there's a Bribery. Yeah, we've got some good creatures in the deck. There's a Salamander that they could point at Nadu. We'll just burn the counter magic here. We'll be able to draw a card from the Arcane Denial at least and see if we can get into a land next turn. So now the 3-5 swings in at us again, and they'll get a couple of energy. So they're targeting the Nadu to trigger it, and they'll get a copy of that. And the copy was swinging into the right, but they decided to keep the untapped blocking version. Can only keep one of a legend. So, are we going to crack Sakura Tribe Elder? Yeah, I think so. Maybe we go Rampaging Baloths next turn. So we'll double block the Menace. And then Saxaka a Tribalder for a basic forest. Alright, so at the beginning of the next upkeep we draw a card from Arcane Denial. The Jeskai player draws 2. And when we draw, a Red Devil comes into play from Zerzoth. We've drawn into Robe of the Archmagi, which might be of some use to us next turn instead of any of this big heavy stuff. Just draws a card and makes a treasure with the enchantment. And there we see a Cabal Coffers, only 2 black swamps in play. Raphael, Fiendish Saviour after that. We'll give lifelink and +1/+1 to all these devils. And the 3/4 goes in at the left, going to make each of them loot. Mindclaw Shaman being discarded, and the Nadu jumps in the way of the 3/4. Zedruu the Great-Hearted into play. Hasn't yet made use of the Transmuter. Might do that at the end of Raphael's turn. And we are gaining control of the Ensnaring Bridge. Okay, there is a Spore Mound for us. Not getting into the land. We've got all this landfall stuff and no means of making lands, unfortunately. Don't have any instants to make use of Seedborn Muse with either. So I think just getting down Rampaging Balos would be the thing to do here. And then ideally we'd have a means of landfall target something like Bristly Bill. So we get a land into play, we target Rampaging Baloths, it makes a token and we can do that for as long as we keep making lands. But not the best showing of Nadu so far. At least the Ensnaring Bridge might slow the game down enough for us to actually see some decent gameplay from it. Solemn Simulacrum, a little bit of ramp. And now Field of the Dead beginning to trigger, so Nadu over here might do even better than we are. And this time Satya goes in to the right, making a copy of Solemn Simulacrum. So the copy of Solemn Simulacrum comes in, and I don't imagine they care if it survives or not here. But they will get to ramp and make another zombie. Alright, so double blocking on the commander. The Solemn Simulacrum swings at Zedruu, who blocks. And in response to blocks, the Swords to Plowshares goes on to Raphael, so going to be able to take out a devil here. It'd be interesting to see where he points the damage. You'll have to be careful with these Narus in play. So Solemn goes down to blocks and draws, and the devil should just be pointed at a player here. And yeah, pointing it at the energy player. Okay, I think he made another land there. There's another zombie and Arcane Signet. Still 6 cards in hand over there with the commander intact. Drawing a card and making a treasure again with the Black Market connections. And there we are, Toxic Deluge going to wipe out everything. Apart from, it's leaving the Rampaging Baloths. X is 5 on this. But there's going to be 1 damage from the devil, of course, which is probably what they're accounting for, so point that at Rampaging Baloths. And after the board wipe, a Hobble Fiend, so 2/1 trample. Zedruu back down again. Alright, a fetch land for us, so I think we just have to take advantage of Tatyova here. So play the fetch into Tatyova, start gaining at least a little bit of life, because we keep getting hit by Mana Crypt. Alright, and there's an Ottawara as well, can only make 1 land a turn at the moment though. So crack that for Tropical Island, see if we can draw into anything else of relevance. Thought Vessel, that'll do. Another land being played into Field of the Dead. And a 3-fold Thunderhulk is only going to come down with 3+ counters on it. Good thing to get multiple copies of though. Losing 6 life to Black Market Connections this time, so getting all 3 effects. Witty Roastmaster after that. That triggers on whenever a creature enters, it's 1 damage to each opponent. And there's a Mayhem Devil. 1 damage to any target when you sack a permanent. We do want to be getting into consistent fetches, so have to watch out for that. Got pretty low powered creatures in play at the moment, so it's not really affecting the attack step with Ensnaring Bridge being in play. Alright, Zedruu, X is only 1 at the moment, I think. So draw a card, gain a life. A Karmic Justice. So we're going to have to be careful blowing up Zedruu's stuff, but is he just going to hand this over to someone else? Seems like a benefit as opposed to a punishment, which isn't typical of Zedruu. Collective Restraint, I've just put in a deck recently, I can't remember which one I put it into though. Anyway, setting up a Pillow Fort, is this just... yeah, they can't attack you. And a Solitary Confinement as well. Alright, see if we lose the flip again. We do. Most of the damage we've taken has been from Mana Crypt this game, I think. Okay, a Pongify is probably good to keep hold of, so let's... do we draw first with Tatyova? I don't see that it'll do any harm to landfall. Yeah, we won't have the mana held up for our commander. We're a mana shy, so we can't go Spore Mound into the commander. Let's see what we draw into first, because we might not want to go for our commander for some reason. Alright, a Turn Timber Basilisk is good. So that means if we get into any lands, we can chain off a little bit. And that means that we can get down the Basilisk and still hold up Pongify. So this is one of the landfall target things that I was talking about previously. One of the worst ones, but still. Alright, so we can protect ourselves a little bit. There's some Pillow Fort stuff in play, but we've got the Pongify ready for anyone that wants to try it on with us. Alright, plus counter being put onto the threefold Thunderhulk by sacrificing one of the gnomes. And that means that 1 damage is going to be pointed at something. Alright, points it at the Turn Timber Basilisk, so let's try our luck here. Could always point a Pongify at something of our own, I suppose. But getting into a land here would be excellent. Alright, we do get into a land, and it's a damn good one as well, Gaia's Cradle. So, Turn Timber Basilisk, before it goes down, we'll point the ability at itself. So that will have triggered twice. Obviously get the card draw from Tatyova as well. And another land for us. Drew into a land with Tatyova, so yeah, did those in the wrong order unfortunately, but there's another landfall trigger which will replace the Turn Timber Basilisk. So I don't think we really need to bother with the Pongify thing. Alright, sacrificing again to the Thunderhulk. And 1 damage goes on to the token this time. And there's Satya again. So likely going to want to make a copy of the threefold Thunderhulk. So do we want to Pongify on that? I mean, Pongifying on Mayhem Devil wouldn't be the worst either, but let's go for this. See if they've got any counter magic to protect their commander. Wouldn't mind forcing it out of their hand, but they decide to let it go down. And I imagine the Thunderhulk was coming in towards us anyway. So there it is. And they get some gnomes when it swings in. So argument to be made for blowing this up instead of the commander. They get the 5 gnome tokens there, and they've got the mana to do the whole sacrifice thing. Loses 3 life to the black market connections this time, so I'm not sure. That must have been a treasure and a card draw, because they don't have a summoning 6 shapeshifter. Exquisite Blood, whenever an opponent loses life you gain that much. Sacrificing a treasure will trigger the Mayhem Devil, and then sacrificed the shapeshifter token to the Hobble Fiend to put a plus counter on it, so 2 Mayhem Devil triggers here. 1 goes directly at the energy deck, and a damage onto the gnome token. And this player lost life, so gaining a life for the first time with the blood. Zedruu continuing to trigger with only 1 permanent under someone else's control, but is doing something on the stack here apparently. Okay, handing an island over to the Rakdos player, so we'll draw 2 and gain 2. And then activating again, pointing the... giving the energy player an Ancient Tomb. So gain 3, draw 3. Does have to discard 2 the Solitary Confinement in order to leave that sticking around. And discards a land to that. 3 mana held up now and 3 cards left in hand. So looks as though we're going to be able to untap with the Nadu again. Been a very, very slow and clunky one for us thanks to drawing into all the heavy hitters. Okay, winning the flip to Mana Crypt this time, so hopefully our luck's starting to change here. Draw into a land for the turn. So it's, I think, Avenger of Zendikar here. Make a bunch of tokens that we can target with things. Get the Roaring Earth into play before we make landfall. Maybe we can do a bit of chaining off here, maybe get down the Robe of the Archmagi, swinging with Nadu. Priority is being held up by Satya. A Strict Serenade, counter an artifact creature or planeswalker, and you get a bird token. Okay. So that makes our Gaia's Cradle worse than I hoped it would be this turn. But we can go Roaring Earth, 1 mana floating, 2, 3, 4, play and equip Robe of the Archmagi maybe. We want Roaring Earth in play regardless, so get that down. Obviously the Gaia's Cradle would have been a lot better if we'd landed the Avenger of Zendikar, but maybe we'll be able to get more lands in here. Priority still being held up by the Jeskai player. Let's just go for an island. That triggers Tatyova to draw a card. We'll point the plus counter at Tatyova. And pointing the plus counter there triggers with Nadu as well. So see how many lands we can get into here. Okay, it's an offer you can't refuse, which I'd rather hold up than get down the rope, to be honest. So maybe play the Coiling Oracle we also just drew into, because we've got another land to make here. And obviously that gives us another creature that we can target. Oh, I'm misremembering what this does. We have to reveal the land off the top. It's not an explore that allows us into another land. Alright, Blackblade Reforged might be good down the line with all these lands that we're getting into. Yeah, we'll just have to hold up the offer you can't refuse now. It's an interactive game and it's making the game drag out a bit longer than we'd like. But there might be more spot removal that our opponents want to risk getting in on us, like something like a Mayhem Devil. We are very, very slowly setting things up. Field of the Dead triggers again. Followed by Urza, Lord High Artificer. Very good one with all those tokens in play. They did lose life to the Ancient Tomb they were handed though. So that comes in with a big construct, which currently sits at a 7/7. And then going for a Shuffle of the Library activation with Urza. And they exile a Dual Caster Mage with it, so they can play that until the end of the turn, see if they can copy anything decent. Going for the Shuffle effect again. And it's an island this time. And the 5/5 swings in at us, as you would expect. Not going to get a copy of it this time at least, but we'll probably chump with the Coiling Oracle regardless. So in comes a bunch of gnomes, which just so happens to be enough to activate the Urza again. Activating Urza again, and it is a Chromatic Lantern. So playing that, and a Dual Caster Mage as well. And they do have the mana to activate Urza again, so I wonder if it would have been worth risking the Urza and try to get something that you can double up with this. And it's taking forever for my client to pass priority. I passed it ages ago, as you can see it's greyed out, but your clock keeps ticking down for some reason. People will criticise me saying, I mean look at this, we've just lost 20 seconds from talking through it there. People will say, why is your clock so low? And one, it's because of commentary and having to explain what's going on in the game and stuff, but also stuff like that happens. Right, there we go, it's happening again. Pass priority immediately and you lose 10 seconds plus. There's a Sanguine Bond, so that's an infinite combo with the Exquisite Blood. We'll see if the Zedruu player has any counter magic first, because that is the next in the turn order, so make them use theirs before we use ours. But we do have to deal with that. Okay, Zedruu is just auto-yielded, so doesn't have any counters apparently. An offer you can't refuse should deal with this. Priority was being held up by the 3-colour player over here as well, but that's probably to do stuff to us. Sacrificed a treasure, I assume there, so 1 damage from the Mayhem Devil again. Goes on to the energy player again. And then another treasure pointed at us. Karlach, when you attack, if it's the first combat phase of the turn, untap all the creatures. They gain first strike and there's another combat phase, so they do have Shizo in play. So they can get multiple attacks in here and deal some damage. Karlach itself doesn't have to attack. And then a body dropper after that. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, put a plus counter on this. And you can sacrifice something to give this menace as well. So there's a decent amount of damage being dealt by the witty Rockmaster here. And it's triggering the Exquisite Blood every time. Damage can't be dealt to this player because of the Solitary Confinement. 3/2 goes into the right. To the right, to the right. Yeah, they can't deal any damage over there, so how does this work? It's whenever you attack, if it's the first combat. Okay, yeah, so then realising that the Solitary Confinement is there, they're going to get 2 attacks regardless. Alright, so what was Zedruu on? Was it X's 3 on this? Anyway, it triggers at the beginning of the turn. Discarding another land to the Solitary Confinement. Pyromancer's Swath. If an instant or sorcery you control will deal damage to a permanent or player, it's that much +2. But you have to discard your hand at the end step. Nothing we can do about anything our opponent's doing on this turn anyway. Okay, and then we are gaining control of this thing. But annoyingly we will have to discard our hand at the end step. A Shockline came in, so triggers the Exquisite Blood again. So there we are, the Pyromancer's Swath. We've been not doing too well this game. I thought Nadu would be a lot more oppressive than this. I suppose it depends on the hand you start with. does mean that the ensnaring bridge is going to be a lot better though. Means we don't have to worry about combat. Okay, draw into a land, so we've got a means of drawing another card at least and triggering Nadu and stuff. Luckily we could get this into play. So drop the forest and we'll go Tatyova on the stack first. We don't know what's on top of our library, so it doesn't really matter which order we do it in. Would be annoying to draw into a land with Tatyova though. Point the Roaring Earth at the Nadu, so that will trigger that and hopefully reveal another land off the top. Okay, got into a fetch, so Roaring Earth triggers again. We'll point the Roaring Earth at Nadu to try and keep track of what's going on here because we only get 2 triggers per creature. But there's been a bit of luck here, so Nadu triggers for the 2nd time. Alright, and a 3 visits will make landfall again. And there is a Cyclonic Rift. Is counter magic being held up is the question. Alright, and a Rivendell. We'll be able to get into play untapped at some point. Can't make additional lands here though. Make a land with the 3 visits. This is why we wanted Spore Mound in play or something like that. Avenger of Zendikar would have been nice previously because the more creatures we've got, the more we can target with Nadu. So now we can point Roaring Earth at the Tatyova, which we haven't targeted yet. Draw into Trinket Mage with the Tatyova, which can grab us a really good equipment. Although we don't necessarily need the equipment at this point, but it'll be safer in play than in our hand thanks to the enchantment that we've just got into. Alright, Finale of Devastation, so really missing those Avenger of Zendikar tokens now. Although we could fish out Avenger of Zendikar. That'd be 9 mana into this in total. Maybe we're just best going for the Spore Mound. Yeah, let's do that. So X is 5 on the Finale of Devastation. And priority has been held up by this player. So if they've got a counter magic here, then tempt with Mayhem. Choose an instant or sorcery. You can copy it, so they can grab something back themselves here. Yeah, I think we allow it, and then wrap it up in a Cyclonic Rift. So we will say no, because the Finale of Devastation is ours. Alright, so there's a bunch of finales. Won't show us on the stack. Still plenty of blue mana available to this player thanks to the Urza. That is an Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines. So maybe we have to try the Rift before we go for anything else, because we're not going to be getting the landfall triggers. Then goes after a Cavalier of Dawn, so that can destroy a non-land permanent, unfortunately. Yeah, this Satya player's really messed with us. Alright, blowing up an Ensnaring Bridge, hopefully doesn't target a creature. Could target the Nadu quite comfortably here because it won't trigger it again. Instead goes after the Karmic Justice. Better that goes down before we bounce it. Noteworthy that they're able to search the library with Finale of Devastation, which is clearly what they're doing here. So the Karmic Justice triggers and will allow him to blow up something here, probably the Elesh Norn or Urza. I'd be tempted to go for Urza personally, although there's some more tutors to go yet. Alright, Karmic Justice pointed at this of all things. Yeah, I don't know why you'd point it at the Cavalier. I mean, you're allowing them to grab back an artifact or enchantment with that. So the Cavalier targets the Phyrexian Metamorph going back to hand. Okay, went after the Cavalier of Dawn again, because it was blown up previously. So now he's able to go after the Pillow Fort things over here. Noteworthy we're being given creatures here, we've got another creature to target stuff with, so okay. Jeskai player decides to give up on that. I mean, it was him that blew up the Cavalier. And I imagine these two said yes to the temptation as well, which you shouldn't do. But we don't have to discard our hand at the end of the turn at least. And it's one fewer blue players as well, so hopefully we'll be able to get through some counter magic here. Over here, searched out Oher Axonil. So that is double red damage. Oh no, it deals damage equal to the power, so 4 at the moment. Okay, and finally resolving our Finale of Devastation. So yeah, we'll still go after the Spore Mound, but have to remember that the Elesh Norn is not going to allow us to trigger landfall. So yeah, just Cyclonic Rift now, I think. Got a feeling our opponent's got counter magic, but we'll try it. Ideally we would have been able to crack the Scalding Tarn and make a bunch of landfall and get some creatures here, make the Guy's Cradle, tap for more mana. Then we could have gone Trinket Mage into the Shuko. Alright, surprisingly we were able to land that, so let's go for cracking the Scalding Tarn now. Okay, and that was enough to have him scoop, so that was the biggest threat at the table. Just managed to get rid of him. Drop an island off the Scalding Tarn. Noteworthy that there's only one basic island left. So we get a Spore Mound trigger. Roaring Earth, we've still got a trigger on Tatyova. And then these three haven't been targeted yet, so see what we get into. Alright, now we're getting into the tutors. A Trophy Mage and a Retreat to Coral Helm is another Landfall Matters card, so we'll be able to target stuff with that as well. But do not have the mana at the moment, so we're challenging the Rakdos player to wipe the board really. But it was worth doing the Cyclonic Rift because it got rid of a player. Hoping my opponent doesn't wipe the board here, because I'd really like to show off the Shuko shenanigans with Trinket Mage. We get that equipment out. It's just 1 mana, 0 to equip, so... Well, I think you all know by now, with all the talk that's been going on with Nadu, but equip it to one creature, then another, and do that to each of your creatures twice. And we'd probably be generating Spore Mound tokens the entire time. Okay, Living Death will be interesting. We do have decent creatures in the bin. So our opponent sees a Vexing Devil and a Zerzoth. Our commander can go back into the command zone. Foundation Breaker, is it a May ability? Yeah, it is a May ability, so we'll just point it here. Avenger of Zendikar is going to get us a bunch of plant tokens. Draw a card with Coiling Oracle as well. Alright, and I stacked the triggers wrong. We got a land from the Coiling Oracle there. I think it was the last island, so Avenger of Zendikar doesn't get the benefit from the plant tokens, unfortunately. But you can see all the triggers and targeting and stuff that occurs, and if we had Nadu in play, we'd be doing some crazy stuff here. Plus counter just on the flyer will be fine. Maybe our opponent has Rakdos Charm or something like that. That would be a funny way to take us out. Maybe we should play around that and leave them with the Vexing Devil. Or maybe it's too much anyway. Yeah, and our opponent scoops, unfortunately. Next turn we are drawing into a Wood Elves to make landfall again, so basically we go for our commander, we go for the Trinket Mage, search up the Shuko, which I've probably put on screen now just in case you don't know what that card is. You can have a look through your bulk because it's just shot up to like $25 or something. And we can freely equip it to every creature we control twice, making landfall along the way. We'll make additional creatures that we can equip to and continue to chain off like that. Eventually we draw into Thoracle or Labman, something like that. We'd be able to empty our library pretty easily with a board state like that, and then win just by drawing a card. Although with the Avenger of Zendikar plants in play, we were probably going wide there anyway. So there we are, we were treading water for a very long time there, but we did get to see a few Nadu triggers along the way. I think I will try this commander again. I want it to be a lot more flashy than that in a video. So hopefully you all enjoyed the video and look forward to the next one. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.